This video was brought to you by the TLDR socials. Get more from TLDR by following us on Instagram and Twitter, where we post explainers that never make it to YouTube. The link is below. On Tuesday, Americans headed to the polls. Okay, Americans in California did so in a recall election against Governor Gavin Newsom. Just the second recall election in the state to end up qualifying for a ballot. So in this video, we'll take a look at just what the results were and what they mean for California and Newsom going forward, and whether this tells us anything about the current state of US politics. Before delving into the exact results and ramifications, it's probably best to set the scene a little. As we touched upon in a previous video, in July 2020, a group of Republicans launched a campaign to recall the incumbent state governor, Gavin Newsom. Under California law, 12% of voters in the last election would have to back the recall, or some 1.5 million people. At first, the move garnered very little support and was set to lapse before being granted a 120-day extension due to the disruption caused by the virus and relevant restrictions. Then, on the 3rd of December, a new stay-at-home order was announced by Newsom, which quickly provoked an avalanche of signatures. On July the 1st this year, the Secretary of State confirmed that 1.7 million valid signatures had been submitted, and so the recall would proceed to a ballot. Of note especially is that California's recall ballots have two questions. One is effectively a referendum on the incumbent, should they be recalled, yes or no, and the second is if they are successfully recalled, who should replace them. It goes without saying that you can't just stick the incumbent name in the second question. In any case, mail-in voting started on August 16th and Californians had until September 14th to cast their vote. In the days leading up to the final poll, Newsom continually stressed that the vote showed a chance for California to show the rest of the nation that California stands for vaccines, climate science, women's rights, immigrant rights, reproductive rights, the minimum wage, and common sense gun safety laws. A message repeated by the president, calling on California to vote to keep Newsom your governor. The rest of America is counting on you, and so am I. So, with the context out of the way, what were the results? With around 70% of the votes counted, many had already called it. Newsom would not be recalled. Specifically, at the time of writing, CNN projected Newsom to defeat the recall with a 64.2% voting no, a clear lead. Also worthy of note is that Larry Elder, a Republican challenger to Newsom, won a significant plurality of the second recall vote for a replacement with 46%. His next closest rival secured less than 10%.
So in that spirit of recognizing and reconciling this moment and trying to understand what's going on, not just here in this state, but all across the United States of America, I just want to say this. Tonight, I'm humbled, grateful, but resolved in the spirit of my political hero, Robert Kennedy, to make more gentle the life of this world. Thank you all very much, and thank you to 40 million Americans, 40 million Californians, and thank you for rejecting this recall. Good night, everyone.
Beyond the headline figures, three main things need to be highlighted: Senate arithmetic, Newsom's re-election bid, and the midterms. On the issue of Senate arithmetic, the repercussions of this recall election in particular weren't ever going to be limited to just California and their governor. Crucially, the Californian governor has the power to appoint a US senator should there be a vacancy, something which could happen given that the current senator, Dianne Feinstein, is nearly 90. With the Senate evenly split, had Newsom been recalled and Elder elected, a Republican senator could have been selected, tipping the Senate red. Elder even publicly acknowledged this benefit of winning the ballot, reportedly saying, "They're afraid I'm going to replace her with a Republican, which I most certainly would do, and that would be an earthquake in Washington, D.C. Secondly, his re-election bid. Whilst undoubtedly stressful for Newsom, this recall election has given him two weapons at his disposal: cash and people. A campaign source for Newsom said that he had woken up with $24 million of cash on hand for his re-election, and what they termed an online army of volunteers that he can reconnect with as his future unfolds. Finally, when it comes to the midterms, the result is a bit of a relief for the Democrats. The Republican hope that months upon months of pandemic restrictions, precautions and mandates would drive people away from the Democrats did not materialise. Voters are, according to CNN, responding favourably to vaccine and mask mandates. In any case, had the recall gone the other way, the party would likely be in ruin, having lost one of the bluest of blue governorships. Whether this Democrat victory translates nationwide remains to be seen. There is a potential issue with all of this though. In theory, California's system of recall election has the potential to generate a legitimacy problem. According to Ken Miller, professor at Claremont McKenna College, Say exactly 50% minus 1 voters in California backed Newsom, failing to get an outright majority, he would be out, which makes sense in absolute terms. His replacement would then be the person who gathered a mere plurality of nominations or votes on the second question. To really hammer home this point, you could kick out someone with considerable but not majority support, to replace him with someone with significantly less support, in the region of 10 or 15%. It's highly unlikely that this will be the last we hear about recall elections. As The Economist highlights, technology has made signature gathering and canvassing easier at the same time as COVID-19 and its associated restrictions have fueled voters' discontent. In other words, both demand and supply has increased. On the demand side, people are more politically entrenched and discontent with the status quo. On the supply, it's become far easier to bring those people together. Getting people's signatures on recalls is easier than ever. Yet recall elections aren't necessarily all good. A study published in May of this year points towards recall elections actually having adverse effects. As the authors highlight, the very objective of the likes of a recall election is to make sure that politicians are accountable to the people that got them into office in the first place. So surely they must make sure we get the best politicians, right? Well, not really, not always. The issue being when accountability institutions, such as recall elections, become captured by solely political beliefs. In this case, recall elections become less about whether the incumbent's doing a good job, but whether they're from the same political party. Now, we're not saying that Newsom's recall was entirely politically motivated. There are legitimate accountability concerns for some regarding Newsom's apparent flouting of COVID restrictions mere days before toughening them further. But if a recall election can be triggered in California, as blue a state as any in the Union, then who's to say that a politically motivated campaign couldn't affect a massive ideological shift in a swing state? This, together with the cost, close to $300 million, has led some to question whether things need to change, whether the recall threshold needs to be increased in light of online platforms, and so on and so forth, a discussion that started way back in 2004. The issue being that a recall election threshold is a fine line to tread. Too low and it becomes a political gimmick, losing its value and causing valuable time and money to be diverted away. Too high and recall elections lose their reason to exist, ordinary men and women holding their elected officials to account. It becomes a matter of who has the cash to mobilise a huge mobilisation to gather enough signatures. But what do you think? Should California's recall election system be overhauled? Is the legitimacy problem a genuine one, or is the key thing at stake being able to hold politicians to direct account? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram for more TLDR content. You can follow the TLDR US socials or just go wild and follow whichever TLDR account interests you. Anyway, following and sharing our posts not only gets you more from us, but it really helps us out, so thanks a lot. And of course, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we post a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible, and if you want to see your name at the end of the video, you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.